Hey, good evening, everyone, and happy Thursday night here and inside the red zone at Unlock the Middle. My name is Dean Packard. I am the proud principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. And alongside of me, I've got a great cast tonight, but not to mention down below here, down in the southern part of the country, Professor Tovar once again by my side, ready to rock and roll on a Thursday night. And we have a special topic tonight, looking at special education from a different lens and ensuring that we're teaching all students. First and foremost, Josh, how are you before we go around the table? Nice to see you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dean. Josh Tovar, principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD. Garland, USA. Ready to rock and roll in the red zone. We heard that ACDC ready to go on. And Dean, these shows Thursday that you have planned out have been awesome. You know, we've had bilingual ed. We've had emergent bilinguals. We've had students continuing their education in education. Next red zone, we're going to have curriculum. We have some high-powered people there coming in for the curriculum show. The following red zone, we're going to have state-winning football coaches from the 5 major states, California, Ohio, Florida, bringing their solution on their vision of what creating team is. Because we could all learn from that, people that win their state championship in football. But today, it's about caring for all students. That's what it means. All students mean all students. And so these are the topics that if you're brand new to education or you need to fine-tune, then this is the type of show that you need to hear, because you know we have the experts that are bringing their experiences. So it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're in Alaska, whether you're in Hawaii, whether you're in Maine or Florida or anywhere in the 48 middle, we're all stronger together learning from each other. Take it away, Dean.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. You said that I made myself, Josh. You don't give yourself enough credit for doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So it's a culmination of you, me, Chris, and just doing and giving back to education. And when we bring people on like this, the panels that we bring on, it's all about getting better together. So again, tonight is what it's all about. So let's go around the table. Let's start off with David. David, where are you from, man? And talk about your background a little bit. And again, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Again, David Medina. I am the proud director of special education at the Isleta Independent School District in El Paso, Texas. This is I'm coming around about a year and a half in the role, but prior to that, I served as a principal for about 14 years, assistant principal for 4 years. My background has actually started off in special education. That's exactly where it all started from. Got to be a special education teacher back then. It was content mastery, and did that in the elementary for a couple of years. And then I moved to central office. And at some point I said, if I want to come back here at a higher level in a leadership role within the special education department, I knew I had to get out to the campus and get that campus experience. And so that's why I left that role there at Central and spent those many years out at the campus level where I just loved it. I loved the experience of working with teachers, with parents, and most importantly with students. And it came full circle. And so many years later, back in this role that I told my director at that time, I said, I'm leaving because one day I want to be sitting in that seat that you're sitting in right now. And lo and behold, I was able to do that. So I appreciate you guys having us on here. And it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome. What a great story for you to get where you are right now. Kyle, again, welcome to the show. Nice to see you again, and a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'll say this. It's an honor to be on. I always say this. It's an honor to be on shows or podcasts that you actually watch or listen to. So thank you so much for having me on. So my role is a bit different. I'm a resource, district-wide resource for special education programming, which is, I've grown to realize, kind of a catch-all, really. Like my job is to just help, right? I just try to help, whatever that looks like. I started off 19 years as an elementary school special education teacher, and that was in co-taught classrooms, in self-contained classrooms. And now my role over the last 5 years has branched off to, I work pre-K to 12th grade, and I'm in charge of instructional intervention programs for our district. I do behavior support for our district, and pretty much a little bit of everything, whatever anybody asked me to do. And I just try to help, and people ask, and I just usually try to say yes if I can fit it in my schedule. So.
Well, I call that a tier 2, tier 3 specialist. So again, you start talking interventions, great stuff right there. Welcome again, Kyle. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm excited about being a part of this group tonight. A little bit about my background. I was part of Lindale ISD in East Texas for 25 years as a general ed teacher, a campus administrator, and a district curriculum director, federal programs, district testing coordinator, and so on. So I've never served in a special education role specifically, other than how that's embedded in everything else that we do. But I'm now serving for our Region 7 Education Service Center as a special education liaison. And I've been doing that for about 1.5 years, and we work directly with special education directors and connecting them with resources and helping them with all of the differentiated monitoring and support activities like cyclical monitoring, self-assessment, RDA, all of those aspects of special education. And then we circle back around with campus and district leaders on ways that they can help better support their special education students.
You know, I'm going to just ask a question that's not part of the questions we gave to you at the beginning. And just for our audience out there, special education, you know, it's evolved over the years to provide equity and access for all students for their learning. What is your definition? What would you tell people out there that special education means to you? And just go right around the corner really quick, right around everybody here. Laura, you go first.
Sure. To me, it means providing for each student what they need, whatever that may be, whether that's social, emotional, behavior, academic, just relational, whatever it is. It's finding the resources and finding the time and finding a way to meet their needs, whatever that may be.
That ties right into universal design for learning too. And I love that. Absolutely. Kyle.
Yeah, I would say it's really diving deep and understanding the individual learning styles and the individual strengths and areas of concerns for all of the individual students and how we can best support them. And that goes beyond, hopefully that goes beyond the realm of special education. That's just good educational practice, right? How we support all the students beyond just instruction, whether it's behavioral, mental health, social, emotional, and as she said, get the whole child, looking at the whole child and how we can best help them reach whatever success goals it is that they need to get to.
Great stuff right there. David.
Yeah, and the way I see it is finding what each student needs. I think that kids are kids, and no matter what type of what identifying label they might have on them, you have to find what works for them, and it goes back to that individualized plan that's put out there for them, and it's really getting to the heart of what students need. And I know it's been mentioned by Kyle and Lori, you know, social emotional is just huge right now. So it's finding what works best for students and utilizing that to the maximum capacity for those students.
So we'll be talking about the IEP and what that means a little bit as we go on throughout this session. But thank you very much for your understanding of what the term special education is all about. Josh, back to you.
So give us a little bit. Let's combine some of those items right there. Give us a little bit of your origin story. You mentioned it briefly in your introductions, real quick. Give us a little bit more of the different kind of roles that you serve, because you know what, David, you're a director of SPED, like you said, but you began in the facilitation aspect of that. But along that answer, please let the audience know, because you know what, there's people out there that are interested in this field. They want to take those assessments so they could help those students in need. So let them know how you started, because you know what, you might be a library aide that wants to be a SPED teacher. So what roles did you serve in? And then what attracted you? What attracted you to go facilitate this beautiful group of kids that we have at our schools? Dave.
Yeah, so like I said, you know, starting off as a special education teacher, you know, graduating out of UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso, and we all know that when you're in college, it's great, right? It's theory. It's once you step foot into the classroom, then we're actually putting it into practice. I always laugh because I remember that first day of teaching, the actual first day, you know, where I had my lesson plans, I was ready to go. I was a resource content mastery teacher back then. And probably before the end of the first half of the first day, I was done. Like I had gone through everything that I thought that I had planned for this whole, I thought I planned so much. And so, you know, it's going back to those things that you learn in college. And it's very different once you get into the classroom. And I think that's just something that's real important for everybody to understand. You know, as a teacher, you are called upon to be, whether you're a special ed teacher or general ed teacher, it doesn't make a difference. You are a counselor, a nurse, a father, a mother. You play so many roles in the lives of these children. And I think it's just, it's getting a taste of it. And once you get that taste, it's something that you just desire continuously. And there are ups and there are downs. We all worked through COVID. We all thought this was something that we're never going to get through. And yet here we are coming out on the other end, stronger and better for having gone through it. And again, you know, it took me from the classroom to central office to back to the campus. And I think all of those roles that we play as educators, we never stop learning, but along the way, you just pick up so many different tools and talents and skills and ways to interact with students and teachers and parents, because they're so important in this whole idea of special education that, to me, it's just like I said, coming back full circle and being able to, at this point in my career and in my life, is being able to help others to get better at helping students. And the way that I see it in my role right now is, not only am I there to help teachers and students, but I really want to help administrators, because a lot of times we don't have that background of being a special education teacher. And a lot of our administrators don't have that. And so that's one thing that I've told my team, my crew within our department is, folks, we've got to help our administrators to be able to have those skills, because that way, again, it's that coaching, it's that trickle down effect that will have that impact for our teachers and ultimately for our students.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Dave. Lori.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was a general ed teacher in just about every content area in 5th and 6th grade for 10 years. So I'm wired as a person that about every 2 years I need to change something and learn something and do something different. And so, my experience with special education at that point was implementing the IEP and the accommodations in the general education classroom. So whether that was ELA, math, whatever content area I happened to be teaching at the time. And it was truly, really, at that point, I had a passion for special education and learning more about it, but finding what works for kids and being able to give them those tools that they need to be able to access on a fair level, on an equitable level that everyone else can. And so having that experience through that time was just, I don't know, I just really enjoyed every piece of it. A lot of times I would also try to I would like to challenge students. A lot of times our teachers want to just kind of baby our special ed students along, and give them all of this leeway when really they need the challenges and that as well. So I would always try to do things and help them find ways to do things outside of their accommodations as well, just to see what they were capable of, to bring that data back in to be able to continue to help that student grow. Then as an assistant principal, I would say I spent a lot of time working with students with behavior, challenges. That's what you do when you're an assistant principal, typically in the state of Texas, is discipline, right? And so just working with them and trying to come up with creative ways to meet their needs. I feel like we have a lot of conversations lately about the code of conduct and how our code of conduct and our discipline procedures and plans on our campuses don't actually allow for some of those needs that students have with PBIS and the whole MTSS process and all of that when you're talking about behavior. So my experience with that as an assistant principal, being able to have the leeway to find the things that actually help motivate students to do better next time versus constant punitive measures without building that relationship and without finding those specific things that kind of outside the box thinking of what could we actually do to help the students' behavior improve. Then I spent time as a campus principal, and that's a whole other thing as far as master scheduling. I think to me is the biggest piece when you're talking about special education from that perspective. And recently I'm learning more about what it takes to truly develop adequate PLAFs and goals and all of those pieces of the art that special ed teachers are responsible for. And I realized as a principal, I didn't give my teachers enough time to really do that. And so, that just motivates me more to reach out to campus administrators now and to have those conversations and to really help them understand what the special education teachers' job load really is, what their workload is. Because like you guys said, our administrators don't always have that special education background and knowledge. And I didn't when I was a campus principal, other than based on what I had experience with. And so I relied heavily on our diagnosticians and our special education teachers when we had things come up for ideas. But then I spent time at central office, and then you start kind of seeing even the bigger picture of the system. And so for me at that level, and even in the work that I do now, what's important to me is looking at the overall system and helping administrators identify pieces of the policies or procedures or practices that are actually impeding them from better serving their students, and they don't even realize it. So that's really kind of my passion right now as far as what I'm doing now. And I'm not sure if I answered the question completely, but that's just a little bit more of that special education focus in the journey that I've been on.
You know, Lori, before we go over to Kyle for 1 second, I just want you to think about this. You talked about challenges and the challenges that special education teachers face in embedding rigor, in moving the needle. I want you to be thinking about that for a minute, because I'm going to come back, because a lot of times from a special education world, it's very easy to sit in a complacent level. When you embed rigor and try to move the needle and move them from point A to point B, I want to have a deeper talk about what that might look like. But and I apologize. I want to kick it back up to Kyle.
Okay.
Yeah. So my road to special education was different than a lot of people, in that a lot of people get an education, you know, school was great for them. They were inspired. Yeah, that was not the case for me. School was bumpy at the best. What I know now that I didn't know then, as someone who struggled with undiagnosed ADHD, some of my teachers found ways to enjoy my humor more than others. We'll say that. And I had years in school, way back to the elementary level, where I had some teachers who were very traditional in their approach, and they didn't always see my vision of what school could be and the possibilities of school could be, meaning like a 6 or 7 year old boy, let's have some fun, right? Then I went to third grade, was totally inspired by an amazing lady, and kind of set my vision of school a little bit differently. Like, it doesn't have to be horrible after all, right? And then I'm not saying that completely changed everything, but it gave me an opportunity to at least reframe how I viewed school a little bit. And as I went on, I still struggled. As a struggling learner, I always go back to, we did groups in school, much similar to you would do now with the reading groups, except they would label them with, you know, names. And I remember, I think it was fourth grade, we had birds. Mm-hmm. And there were the Cardinals, there were the Blue Jays, the Orioles, I guess somebody like baseball, and then there was my group, and we were the Crows. And the Crows, I believe, starting right around then, we traveled together. And I ended up with a lot of those Crows through all the years, right up into high school. And in high school, I feel like a lot of times I barely made it through. But what I realized is, doing some things outside of school, I really liked working with kids. And I also started to realize I liked working with kids who struggled, because that's me, right? That's me to a T, going way back all the way through. And I was very fortunate to have some very inspiring people who kind of helped me get into special education. And that's where I ended up landing in Delaware, where I became a special education teacher for all those years. And just being able to work with kids on a daily basis was amazing. And now my role as a special education resource is entirely different, and I love it for a variety of different reasons. I can be in a fourth grade classroom assisting, and then, you know, an hour later, I'm working with 12th graders. And that's not for everybody. For my ADHD brain, though, it's perfect, right? So I'm bouncing all over the place, and I get to do a variety of things. And then, you know, 15 years back, you know, became a father. And then we ended up having multiples, meaning twins. And I have multiple kids with unique needs now. And so that forced me to view things a little differently. So all these years as a special education teacher and doing a variety of roles, and now I'm on the other side of the table viewing it from the family standpoint. And that's actually one of the reasons why I started. So I have multiple podcast educators, and I also started doing some podcasting and content creation videos and podcasts for families, because I felt like it's tough to be it's tough to be on the other side of the table and, you know, showing up to IEP meetings, and you really don't have this extensive knowledge a lot of times. And that's tough. And as my wife reminded me of our very first formalized meeting after my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and we had a 504, you know, a few weeks later, I tried to prep her a little bit. Like, this is probably what you're going to see. This can probably see. We went through the meeting, and at the end, you know, I was chatting with her a little bit. And I said, well, what'd you think? It was fine. I said, okay, you give me a little more than that. She said, I don't know what they were talking about. They're just throwing out educational jargon terms. There's like 8 people there. It felt like, well, like a hearing, right? And I said, I get it. I totally get it, right? Like it's a different role. So I've taken what I do in education now, and my role outside of school is trying to help educators, but also try to help families, especially families who have kids with needs, and try to help them as far as like give them some knowledge base on what I've learned through the years myself personally, but also with my kids, and also what I've learned with kids in the classroom. So that's kind of how I've gotten to this point. And like I said, my day gig is I'm really lucky to be in an amazing school district in Dover, Delaware, working with amazing people, kids, and that means I can be working in a classroom, a general education classroom that's co-taught, or a classroom with a general ed teacher or a special ed teacher and a para. And then I could also be working in our specialized schools where we have more intensive behavioral needs and we have more extensive, intensive, and complex needs. So that role is ideal for me because I get to do a variety of things, and it just kind of falls into place.
That's awesome, Kyle. The first thing I think of is our Special Education Advisory Council, that platform where the school and the families come in and they talk about all the rights that they have. And it's a really big thing that districts put out. So that you're like that liaison between the families and the schools. And it's so important because you got to create that total buy-in. Patsy, welcome to the show. Can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Welcome aboard.
I'm
Patsy,
sorry it's late.
No, don't worry about it. You're never late to the table. The table always has a seat, which is good. So, Patsy, just a little bit about yourself and what your role is.
Well, I was a special ed teacher for 37 years, and I got the pleasure of working with David for a while. I had the pleasure of having a wonderful principal, Mr. Tovar. And then I retired 2 years ago.
So you're enjoying the other part of life right now after teaching?
Not really, because I miss it. Once you're a SPED teacher, you always miss your kids.
I love to hear that because there's a special connection between any teacher, not the least of which special education teachers connected with kids that have special needs in order to access their curriculum. Well, welcome aboard. And we're definitely going to add you into the next question that we have here. And basically what I have for you guys is special education has evolved over the years, and I know you've all seen it change. And I talked a minute ago about adding that challenge inside of the learning for students. So if you guys could talk a little bit about how you've seen special education change over the years and how your role played out in that, and how you help teachers not only teach kids, but challenge them to become better and to move from the groups that they're in out and hopefully someday getting into the regular environment of learning. So let's talk about that and what that looks like. And let's start off with David.
All right, thanks for that question. As I was listening to everybody talk and I was going back and looking at the questions, and I think for me, the biggest thing that I was going back to when I was in the classroom, and one of the biggest things that has really changed for me and that I've seen evolve is the idea of your kids, our kids. And I think for me, one of the things that's just so beautiful now is that you see more of these are our students. And so there is more acceptance of students with disabilities. It's not that your kids, my kids type of thing anymore. And there's understanding. And I think that as a culture and as communities are evolving, our students are beautiful, right? And whatever you put them in, they are going to become a part of it. And I think now our teachers are seeing that all kids are beautiful and all kids deserve that opportunity to learn and to become a part of the classroom. And I love seeing our campuses that include all of our students, the way that everybody, whether it's in clubs, my son plays baseball for high school, and there are students that are there in roles as managers, and they are part of the team, and you hear the students cheering them on, and just, to have them be a part of that. And I think to me, that's just something that's so beautiful, because I remember, and it really wasn't that long ago, but there was that stigma of, well, those are your special ed kids, and we shouldn't cross those boundaries. And I think to me, that's just one of those things that has really evolved and changed for the better. And to me, I think that's just beautiful.
That's full inclusivity right there. I love to hear that. Kyle.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'll throw a shout out to a guy I know who's just an amazing individual. And anybody in special education, you're working with special needs students, you need to look this guy up. His name's Derek Horn, and his story is how he grew up all the way through school with plenty of struggles, dyslexia, ADHD, as we would say, hidden disabilities. But he started in almost like the dungeon, horrible terminology, right? Like the special ed room down in the dark end of the hallway. And to be honest with you, it wasn't I mean, depending on how old you are, it's not too very long ago, right? It's like 25 years ago when I started, this was similar in a lot of schools, unfortunately. So thankfully, we've made a lot of progress. Still a long way to go. It was still a long way to go. We still need to continue to move in some of our initiatives. But one of the things that's been really helpful throughout all these years since I've been working in special education is just more inclusive models where we're providing more opportunities within the classrooms for students. And that looks a variety of different ways. And every student has their own individual needs met in different ways. But the idea is that we have more options available. We develop a continuum of services because what a least restrictive environment looks like for one student is different for another. But we try to provide them as many opportunities as we can in the most inclusive environment we possibly can, so that they're able to not just learn academically from others, they're also able to learn socially, behaviorally from others. And I just think individuals without disabilities learn so much too, right? We learn about acceptance. We learn about care, compassion, respect for individuals with needs. And we also learn that everybody's different. And we all, although we can diagnose somebody with a specific disability, really, what does that mean? It just means they have certain strengths and they have certain areas of concern. And everybody has that, regardless if you're in special education or not, right? Like everybody's good at something, and you got other areas you need to work on. And so when we talk about kids with special needs, I think one of the things that we've really come a long way with is how we approach the instruction. So now we have creative models of instruction in inclusive classrooms where it's co-taught classrooms. That did not exist, 25 years ago. I mean,
Right.
Very few classrooms did, at least. Now we have other options as well. Now we have classrooms where we have dual certified teachers, and maybe the level of need for the students in there isn't extensive. And so we can provide paraprofessional support for those students. So it looks a lot different than it did years ago. And I think that's a benefit, right? And like I said, we still have a long way to go with how we're working with our students and how we support our students and their families. But I feel good about the work that's been done over the last 25, 30 years in special education, because we've gone from, as Derek Horn would tell you, the end of the hallway to trying to bring our students with special needs and give them more opportunities and identify the areas that we can work on and help them excel.
Inclusivity, differentiation, general ed teachers understanding how to use a district accommodation plan, and all of a sudden special education opportunities don't exist at the highest level than they were before, because we recognize that good teaching practices will help kids access their learning points. And again, I get the reason why. Cognitive, whatever we're dealing with roadblocks for kids, we need to have special education. But if we teach gen ed teachers to utilize the tools that they have, it's going to make learning that much easier for everybody else. So Lori, you're up.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the way that it's changed in my perspective. So I actually grew up in the town where I taught and worked for 25 years for the district. So I was a K-12 student in that district, and then worked as an educator for 25 years, and still live in the same town. But I'm going to say, back when I was in school as an elementary school student, like we're talking like 80s, right? Early 80s. Special education was like, I didn't even know it existed. Right? Like there were these kids that I saw every now and then that were different, that other kids made fun of. But other than that, I really didn't know much about what was going on. I just knew they weren't really around. And so then I fast forward to my time as an educator, and I was blessed to be in a place that was, I feel like, pretty proactive, ahead of the curve on a lot of those inclusion type things, behavior program type things. But I think about I guess we go from no continuum at all back in the 80s, and due to legislation, law, and policy being passed, it's like that has to happen before schools decide we need to do something different. Even if educators see we need to do something different, a lot of time the powers that be, budgets, finances, all those things don't actually fall into place until it's legislated in our laws. And so thankfully, we had leaders who were proactive and saw those things needed to happen. And we're able to put those things in place so that we would follow suit and do those things that are needed and allocate funds and so on and so forth. But what I want to talk about is kind of currently, we talked about what does increasing rigor look like? What does holding students with learning disabilities to a higher standard and not just always never having high expectations, right? I work with a charter school in our region, and their whole entire school, their K through 12, their whole entire school is PBL, so project-based learning. And so you talk about having individualized plans basically for every single student in every content area, every grade level through the system. And so as they were talking about that, my first thought as a recovering campus principal is, well, what do their STAR scores look like? What do their assessment scores look like? Like, how is that really working, right? Do you really have special education students? Do you really have economically disadvantaged students? I mean, do you get to choose who they are? And they literally have the gamut of the whole population, just like a public school. And their assessment scores, which is not what it's all about, but ends up being what it's all about, right? Are amazing. Like, they have special education students scoring meets, which is better than passing, on that assessment. And it's like, and then you've got your GT students too. I mean, I know we're talking about special education, but you've got every student getting exactly what they need all day, every day, and every year they're in that school. And just the success rate they have is amazing. So I think it's getting to that, almost that differentiation, that individualized plan for what kids need, special education or not, that really increases the rigor and the expectations and the success that they can have.
We call those individualized success plans for students across the board. And when utilized correctly, the needle grows for everybody. So you're absolutely correct. You're actually putting a finite position on every student's needs to access the curriculum. So great stuff right there. A lot of work, but the work is well worth it in the end. There's no doubt. Patsy, so 37 years in the classroom. Okay, you've seen the evolution of special education teaching. What has that been like from your lens?
It's been very different. It's been very eye-opening. I remember when we first started inclusion. Wow. I think by having inclusion and having more of an inclusive classroom with students, that opened a lot of minds for a lot of people, a lot of teachers, a lot of students. So I think that's where it all began. And, you'd be surprised at how much these SPED students want to be part of that. They have such great talents. I had a student that was special ed. He could hook up any computer in my classroom, figure out whatever was wrong with my computer. And that's because he was in the computer class. He was getting to know other kids, just being in the inclusion program. Great. And some of them don't even like the paraeducators to walk with them. No, get away from me. I can do this by myself. So it doesn't only build them socialization with the other students, but it also brings independence. Mm-hmm. And them also advocating for themselves. So that's what I've seen a lot, doors opening with the inclusive, with everybody being included in everything, the diversity of everything.
Win-win for everybody. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's no doubt. And we could do a whole show on co-teaching too. Again, understanding all the moving parts of co-teaching, but nevertheless, for a different show. Josh.
Right.
So we've seen the exodus that's been happening after the lockdown, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what we call it anymore. It's here, it's not there, whatever it is. But we know that we've had new team members join, and a lot of them are alt-cert. So when we have new team members that didn't take the pathway with pedagogy, so on and so forth from the business field, obviously there's something gonna be lost. So what do you feel right now as we're starting to see the vacancies still pile up? Look at all the ISDs across the country. We have vacancies left and right with the exodus happening nonstop. How do you see this affecting our beautiful children? Kyle.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's unfortunately one we're all addressing. And there's not a lot of easy answers to this, but I'll tell you, it's heartbreaking because it's the field that we all love, and it's the field we're passionate about and helping kids with needs. And we're just struggling to get the candidates to fill spots. And this is obviously, it's not just here in Delaware, it's a nationwide problem. And then the question is, from an administrative standpoint, if you don't have somebody who can fill that special education role, what do? Well, you have to find somebody. And so what we've leaned on, as many others have, is bringing in people who don't have a background with special education,
Right.
and trying to get them, I guess, trained up as quick as we can. And it's not the most ideal situation. But I will say this, whether it's, trying to take a paraprofessional who's leading a classroom, which unfortunately we have quite a few of those, and especially in our specialized school, because we've lost teachers, or we weren't unable to fill roles, or we've had plenty of teachers coming in with alternative certification routes, which is amazing. Like, it's definitely very, very important, very powerful to be able to bring and lean on people from maybe other areas of employment or other facets, and bring them in. However, that learning curve, super steep. And so this is one of the things I'm really passionate about, because I work with all of our year ones in special education. I'm in charge of lead mentoring for our district, and that includes alternative certification routes. And so one of the things they constantly tell me, and rightly so, is not only do I need to learn how to be a teacher, not only do I need to learn how to manage a classroom, not only do I have to learn how to support students, I also have this burden of all this IEP paperwork I need to learn, and my knowledge of it is pretty much zero. And that, as we all know in special education, that's a huge mountain to climb as well. So all of that to say that it's not ideal, but it's the situation we're in. We have to play the game we're in. We have to make the most of it. And so what do we do for our students? It's not ideal, but what we can do is work with our existing staff and understand, number one, we've got to get them better, faster, for the sake of the children, for the sake of all of our students. But we also got to be patient too, and understand, real growth takes time. And it doesn't matter if you're 40 years into the game or you're a brand new teacher with zero experience coming in alternative cert route. Everybody's still learning and everything is still changing. But when we're talking about someone who doesn't have a big background knowledge, you just really have to do what we do with students. We got to blanket them with support systems. So we need the staff to understand this is not going to be easy for them. And we need to provide them with resources. We need to provide them with a shoulder to cry on. We need to be able to give them people that they can lean on, and just gather as much information as they possibly can. And so that's the key component. A lot of the key components is the boots on the ground. What are we doing to support those individuals in the classroom who are supporting our students? And again, yes, it dramatically impacts our kids. And the answers to this are recruiting and retainment. But recruiting is hard. It's hard. In Delaware, we really struggle because we're not paying as much as the surrounding states. We used to be able to go out to other states. That's why I came to Delaware from Pennsylvania. I got recruited to come here, and hey, I got a job right from the jump. It wasn't available. I would have had to wait a while in Pennsylvania. Right now, all the states need to hire, and so it's really tough. But this is the challenge for everybody's facing. So I guess what we have to do is make the most of it, and that means really leaning on our staff to help develop all those individuals who have really steep learning curves.
Thank you, Kyle. Patsy, now that you wake up at 11 o'clock to have breakfast, and you're in your chancla sandals,
My warm-up.
you've had time to reflect on this. What have you heard, or what do you feel that our brand new team members, what kind of adversity our kids will face?
Well, it was like, I think it's Kyle that was saying, it's the lack of the knowing, because, all of you all know that to be a SPED teacher, you have to have that compassion. A lot of people go in there without having that because they're kind of like, okay, well, you're going to do this. Okay, you have to learn how to do this. And it's a lot to begin with, boss. I mean, you have to want to do it to be able to get to do it with them. And it's like somebody told me one time, they don't know how much you care until you show them, right? And that's very, very vital to not only to our SPED kids, but to all our kids. But they need to get to know, like, to trust you, to know that you're there. They can cry on you. They can, they're frustrated. You know what's wrong. So I see a lot of that, like very impatient. They don't know it yet. They don't know how to handle that yet. They don't have the techniques yet. So maybe more training on that aspect for our newbies that are coming in and stuff like that.
Thank you, Patsy. Hey, Dave, you got the big task for our whole ISD, brother. What does it look like?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, everybody's facing shortages, right? I've had a vacancy for an instructional. It's similar to what Kyle does. We call them instructional specialists. I've had a vacancy since June, and it's, and I always tell my guys, just trust the process. If we have to hire smart, because then if we don't hire smart, it doesn't matter
Right.
who you put in that position.
Right.
Then they're. So I kind of am looking at this question and I'm thinking to myself, in reality, we can hire somebody with a college degree, prestigious university, and we can parallel it with somebody that comes in with alt certification. The things that I always want to look for, and the things that when I was a campus administrator and I would talk to my teachers and my APs about, is if this person is not coachable. Doesn't matter if you're a college degree or you're coming from a different line of career. If you're not coachable and you're not passionate, it doesn't matter. You are not going to be successful because you don't come with the desire to do what is necessary. And I think a lot of times, I think, a while back, our universities were inundated with teachers graduating because I think people thought education was easy. And it was I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to go into teaching. We've all heard that saying. I don't know what to say it is, but
Right.
If you don't come in, whether you're college degree or you're coming from an alternative certification, another career, if you don't have that passion, it doesn't make a difference. You have to be coachable, and I think that I can get somebody that has zero knowledge, but if they are willing to put the time and the effort and to listen and to learn, and we've got to assign them mentors, and we have to make sure that we are providing that continuous training and not the drive-by. I can't teach you in August and expect you to get it. I've got to teach you in August. I've got to come back to you in September. Let's see how you're doing in October. And there has to be that continuous way for us to monitor and make sure that you are getting it. And when you're not getting it, how do we go back? And I think that, to me, again, whether you're a graduate in college or alternative certification, that to me is the key to the success. You can be, like I said, graduating from your college as the number one student, and then you get into the classroom, and sometimes, I hate to say it, but sometimes they're duds, right? If we've been an administrator, sometimes we've seen that. And Kyle, you work specifically with teachers, and I'm sure that you get out there and you work and you say, let's try this, let's implement it. I'm going to come back in 2 weeks and let's see how it goes. And you go and nothing, right? And again, so to me, obviously there's going to be an impact, but if you can hire smart and you hire somebody that is passionate and you hire somebody that is coachable and somebody that can recognize, if I need help, I'm going to ask for it, but I'm going to follow up with what they're asking me to do. I think that just wins wars no matter what. That is going to help us move that needle for the teachers and for the students. And that's what we need we need leaders to understand that, because Kyle said it right now, it's not going to happen overnight. And we have to be realistic with that. It's going to take time. And so as long as we give the support, regardless of where you come from, and you're passionate and you're coachable, you're going to succeed. And I think that's what I want to put out there. And that's what, now looking at it from the district perspective, is I want to be able to help our administrators to get those people, and then to have our supports go out there to make these teachers better. That's kind of what.
Love it.
Lori.
So I'm going to echo probably a lot of the things that you guys just shared. Number one, I'm going to say special education directors, you guys are my hero. I'm just going to say that, because you guys have so many responsibilities. I can't even begin to start naming them, but the passion that I see from special education directors is almost like no other I've ever witnessed, because of that load, but because of the work that you do. You're so adamant and focused on kids and whatever that takes. But I want to say about the traditionally prepared teacher versus the alt-cert teacher, I may have a different experience, but when I was a campus principal, and I was a campus principal for 4 years and an AP for 4, so 8 total on the same campus involved in hiring teachers and supporting and all of that. So I had a really great experience with literally every alternative certification candidate that we hired was on fire for helping kids. That is why they were there. Like, that is why they made that choice. It wasn't that they were tired of doing whatever they were doing. They truly, I think, had been avoiding the fact that they were supposed to teach, right? We all know those people who are supposed to teach, but they think, no, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm gonna major in business, or I'm gonna major in, whatever it may be. And then they always find themselves back teaching. And so I want to echo what David said on, I don't think, you think about it, your traditionally prepared teachers are usually 23 years old, right? 22, 23. They usually don't have kids yet of their own. They have all of that content knowledge in a perfect world scenario, but they don't really have the experience, the authentic experience of managing a class, planning their lessons and delivering them, and knowing exactly, how to learn more about their students. But then you've got the alt-cert teachers who maybe don't have as much time invested in the content and the classroom management and all of that, but they come in with that life experience of, I had the privilege of hiring a lady who was retiring from the Army, right? So she'd been in the Army for 20 years, and she had counseled, she was like a mechanic on helicopters or something, right? But she had counseled other soldiers for those 20 years, right? And managed them and worked with them and guided them and motivated them. My goodness, one of the best teachers I've ever seen, because her passion was about other people and about investing in other people and that authenticity. So I go back to, like I said, I'm going to echo a lot of what you guys said, but I think having that passion is number one, and that desire to really help kids, and we can teach the rest. We can do the job embedded PD ongoing, like what you were talking about, regularly, mentoring programs that are really well designed and executed. Let's not forget principal supervision, right? That's a part of the growth process as well. And just all of those things. And then, of course, your school culture really is key in all of that too, as far as retaining. You talked about recruiting and retaining. People will stay at a school when they're making less money than when they can go somewhere else. If it has a great culture, they feel like they make a difference, they're appreciated and valued, and they're supported. So I think all of those pieces are important. And I think the ultimate question here is, how does all of this impact our special education students? Well, there's no doubt that when you have a para or a substitute taking care of a resource classroom, providing instruction for students, they're going to be negatively impacted, because that individual does not have the education, the knowledge, the experience, and the ability to do what a teacher could do. So ultimately, our kids do miss out, and they do suffer to a degree when you're talking about the lack of qualified individuals available to teach and to support, whether it's behavior specialists or interventionists or whatever. So definitely a negative impact for sure.
A lot of great nuggets dropped right here, and there's no doubt about that. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because we got to go under an hour. So I'm going to throw this question at you, and I'm looking for 2 responses from each of you. What could campus hierarchy, superintendents, district office, and or principals give to teachers to help them become better with their craft, for helping special education teachers get better? 2 things. Let's start off. We'll go Kyle.
Yeah, so similar to what I just said, to be honest with you, we got to make sure the systems are in place to support our people. And so the most important people who do in our school districts are the ones who are directly working with our kids. So that's the paras, that's the teachers. They are directly, consistently working with our kids. We've got to make sure that we put systems in place that support them. So mentoring programs, phenomenal. We have that should be a given at this point, I hope, right? Like that should be a given. And being thoughtful about who our mentors are, and staffing is always an issue. So how many are willing to be mentors? How many are willing to, be able to spend extra time to bring along, whether it be alternative cert routes or new teachers? There's just, hopefully that's a given. But the layer that really needs to be addressed is that we got to make sure that our mentors, and not just mentors, just the people who are helping our new staff. We don't need just one. We need a team to work with our new staff. And so everybody kind of has to be on board with understanding, and going back to what Dave said, if we can have coachable people jump in, whether they're alternative routes, whether they're a para, whether they're a teacher, just good people with good hearts and willing to be coached and try, then we need to blanket them with a team that's willing to be able to pull them along and teach them the ropes, teach them, just dump all the wonderful information you have on them and be patient and pull them along. So that's a key component, right? And I'm passionate about mentoring, but it needs to be more than one person, right? Like all of us, you work in education, more than one person impacted you in all your years teaching, right? Or all your years as an administrator. It's a group. It's a group. You build a family, and the family supports each other. And beyond that, I would say we really need to make sure that we have coaching available for the staff. And again, that's a district level decision. Who's going to be providing that coaching? And we need to make sure that we've got knowledgeable and patient people, right? I'm hitting on the same things over and over again, but it's really important, because if we have a mentor that's pushing people too fast, we have a coach that's pushing people too fast, administrators that want to push faster, you know what happens? Boop, they're out the door. I've had enough. This game's not for me. Sayonara, right? And so we have to be careful, because we got to recruit good people. We got to retain and take care of the people that we have. And so those things happen at the district level. We look at systems that we put in place, and we work with the people around the ground to make sure that those processes are continuing to happen, so that we're supporting and taking care of the people who are making the biggest impact. And that's the individuals in our classrooms.
Systems, mentors, training the mentors on what to do is the other side of that too. So I love that you said that. David, two things very quickly off the top of your head.
For me, two things, and I'll go quick because I know we're running out of time. But one of the things that I think of, and I was listening to Kyle as well, is there's got to be an investment in training. I think that is one thing that is just so critical. Is that I know for a fact, like our general education teachers are inundated with professional development. Just everything thrown at them, resources, training, all these things. When we look at our special ed teachers, that's not always there.
Right.
And I think that goes back to, again, the administrators maybe not necessarily understanding what is necessary, what is needed. So for me, there's got to be that investment in making sure that we are training up our teachers. And the second part of that is, that aligns with that, is we've got to provide them with the resources as well. And so, I'm blessed to work in a district right now where my bosses understand that. And so there is the investment that has been given where they're telling me, David, work with the teachers, work with the administrators, get them the training. And we're sending our people out like continuously to go out there and to train our teachers and to make sure that they are getting those tools. And I think to me those are those two things. It's the training, the investment in the training, and the resources, and it's got to be continuous. It can't be a drive-by one-time thing. You got to keep on doing it in order for us to get better.
Tied into the core values. Absolutely agree with you right there, David. Lori.
Yeah, I just want to say two things that I think are most important, and I say this to every campus and district administrator when I get the chance, is time. The educators need time built in somewhere, whether it's every day, once a week, once a grading period, whatever it is, they need time to truly monitor that progress on their goals, be able to prepare those IEPs for the ARD meeting, and really be able to adequately look at the data for students and make sure they're making that progress. So I'm going to say time, and I'm going to say support. And under support, it's exactly what we've heard. It's resources, it's PD, it's coaching, it's mentoring, all of those things that would fall under support. But I'm going to put time as number one, to do the things that once they're trained, they know to do, and then that training and support along the way.
Thank you, Lori. I agree with you 100%. Time is the greatest gift to any educator or any administrator, because that's where it all starts. And Patsy.
They've said it all. I have it all written down.
They did it. I left you the tough one right now.
I know. I'm like, why am I last? What I liked about Kyle was that it's very true about the mentoring. You have to have a good mentor to be able to learn and to be able to see what's going on. You have to have that connection, but not only in the school, but also like at your central office. You should have a mentor there and at school. I know that's like a big thing, but another thing that David said that was very important that I missed when I left the district was PD, professional development training, going out to go and learn about what's going on in Austin, what's going on. Everybody else would go except for the SPED teachers. And I think that was very important for us to learn. When I got the chance to go to Austin to learn about content mastery, wow, and bring it back to El Paso, that was amazing. So give us the opportunity to go out and learn other resources from other places. And everybody else, what everybody else said.
Perfect answer right there, the blanket. Josh.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. You want to reach out to any of these awesome educators? We have it on the promo, their Twitters. Reach out and make friends with them. Pick their brain, because this is such a volatile situation if you don't have the right person in place for student success. We have awesome masters right here that will share all their knowledge with you. And we had a great job. And you know what, Dean? You know what I think happened today? We scored another touchdown in the red zone. We did a great job with these awesome educators. Awesome job, everybody. But hey, Dean, it's not over, because what happens this Sunday? This Sunday, the flagship, 7 p.m. Join us for Zach Baumaster, principal author, going to join us and dropping those leadership nuggets for everybody. So join us this Sunday for the flagship show. Take us home there, Dean.
Hey, listen, guys, this is my takeaway. Every student deserves a champion. Every student deserves to be part of a learning community. Every student has the ability to make their school, to be proud of it, and that the teachers in there, the administrators, the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, everybody involved has a stake in making kids feel good about who they are and helping them learn. And that's what it's all about. Inclusivity for everybody. Make sure they can access their learning. And I'll tell you what, everybody on this call, you guys are champions to begin with, because you wouldn't be here right now talking about what you're doing. Hey, I wish you all a great week. And remember that kids come first. Hold on, everybody. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy